What is up, guys? In today's video, I'm going to go over some tips to hopefully help you beat aggressive players or players who are pushing you after getting damage. You know, when you're losing a fight, how do you outplay that situation? As always, if you guys do enjoy this video, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you like some more, and comment down below what you do in situations where the other player is winning the fight versus you, or, you know, maybe they get a snipe on you. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to make this video, because this is going to happen a lot this season with the prevalence of snipers. There's going to be times where fights start with you just getting tagged by a sniper. So that's what we're going to assume is kind of the case for this situation. Is you've been bodied by a sniper, the fight is now, you know, you're at an HP deficit, they're pushing you. How do you play in that situation? The first thing you're going to want to do in any fight when you're losing and you have the option to, you know, there's going to be some fights where you're behind on health and that fight is happening whether you like it or not. But if you have the ability to reposition and get to a place where you have right shoulder peek and then they're pushing into you, that's going to be the most common way for you to turn a fight that isn't going your way, because right shoulder peek is very favored in Fortnite. When you peek from the right behind a piece of cover, you have to expose very little of your character, whereas like if you peek from the left, you have to expose a lot of your character. And this is because the camera in Fortnite is off center. So if you can, you know, shockwave to a tree and then turn back and look to get a right shoulder peek shot on the opposing player, that can be one of the ways and the most common way for you to turn the fight, whether it's close range shots with a shotgun when they finally get to you, AR tags, or especially this season, the sniper. And you can definitely snipe people when they're shockwaving at you, which is going to be one of the more common mobility items that people use to push you, you know? I've had it happen to me many times where I try to shockwave onto somebody and then I either get sniped out of the air and I get headshotted, or even just bodied. And I've also had the inverse of this happen where somebody's pushing me with a shockwave, I snipe them, and then now we're kind of on even terms. But the difference is, like, I maybe have had my overshield recharge, they haven't, things of that nature. So if you are able to get to somewhere and get a right shoulder peek, that's going to be the way that you can turn the fight. The biggest problem I think a lot of people get into, or the things that makes it very difficult for them to turn fights like this, is that they run just to run. They don't run or a shockwave or grapple blade or whatever to a piece of cover with the mindset of, I'm going to try to get shots on this person and discourage them from pushing me. They just run to run, and they're just trying to get away from the fight, get away from the situation. And if you're not, you know, trying to defend yourself, you're not going to win that fight. You know, eventually the person is probably going to eliminate you or give up chasing you, and then they're going to be a problem later on. But I feel like just running for the sake of running and not defending yourself is very likely to get you killed. Again, it's going to happen sometimes. Not everything in Fortnite is always going to be ideal, but I think it's very important to play with the mindset of where can I get to potentially defend myself, rather than just panicking and running away. If possible, you would like to heal. So sometimes you might shockwave to a piece of cover and then you've bought a little bit of time for yourself to heal, or, you know, like they're further away, you can pop a big pot, you can pop minis, you can pop flowberries, whatever you have. And this is one of the reasons why fast heals were always so good in Fortnite. When we had the slurps in Chapter 4 or Chug Splash in the past, they were super good because you could invest a very limited amount of time into healing and still get health back. But in Chapter 5, all of the healing items pretty much have been reworked to give you health over time. So if you're drinking a big pot, you might be able to drink a big pot and get like 20 or 30 health out of it, and then swap to one of your weapons before you make that right shoulder peek. And that little bit of HP you get back can definitely be the difference maker in the fight, in addition to like your overshield coming back in zero build. And this is also one of the reasons why the medallions were really overpowered at the start of the season, because as soon as you started taking damage, you would start regenerating. Whereas now with the medallions, it takes a while before you start regenerating, and you regenerate slower. So the medallions are still useful for this, but they're not as big of a deal as they were previously. So when you have the opportunity to heal, you're going to want to take advantage of that. And you can actually use the heals while you shockwave. So you could shockwave, swap to your big pots, swap to your flowberry fizz, and start using those items. And in addition to the heals giving you health over time, you can also move while using them now. And so again, it just makes it much easier to turn fights, because you can use your heals for a limited amount of time and still benefit from doing so. And you can also use them while moving, which just makes you less stationary, or less like stuck. And I still prefer shieldfish though. Like shieldfish are still the ideal healing item in my opinion, just because of how fast they could give you health. You know, you can dip behind a rock for a half second, eat a shieldfish, and now you have 40 shield. So if you have the opportunity to carry shieldfish, that's going to be great. But all of the heals now in the game are just pretty good because of the heal changes that they've made. And in these situations, you're not favored. Obviously, you know, this is a situation when you're losing a fight, it's not going your way. How do you turn that? So there's going to be times where you do everything right and you still lose because the other player was either good or, you know, the disadvantage that you were at was just too large to overcome. But just being calm in these situations and not panicking, I feel like is definitely going to help you kind of reposition properly and try to get a right shoulder peek to reset and turn the fight, rather than just like panic running away and then just ending up in an area where you don't really have a defensible position anyways. So just, you know, trying to stay calm. It's very easy for me just to say stay calm and don't panic in fights, but I think the biggest thing that really contributes to a lot of people panicking in fights in Fortnite is just that they're not confident or not comfortable fighting or not comfortable playing the game. And that's why the biggest thing I've always stressed with people, if they ask me like, yo, I want to get better at Fortnite, how do I do that? I think the biggest thing is just getting in fights. A lot of players, when they're new to the game, you know, they install, they want to get their first win, they play passive, they get that win, and this kind of like impacts their playstyle permanently. They just end up playing super passive all the time, and they don't really get experience fighting, so they don't really get like comfortable and confident fighting. And I feel like that like panic never really goes away. But if you just, you know, force yourself to play a little bit aggressive from time to time and get in more fights, don't really care about whether or not you win or lose, just get confident fighting. Creative was really good for this, but unfortunately the new weapons aren't in creative right now. But if you force yourself to get in fights and force yourself to get comfortable fighting, I feel like you get over that panic a lot faster than if you just play normally and play passive for like months and months and months, and then eventually you get experience fighting. I think it just comes down to, you know, confidence. I think comes from experience and just kind of knowing that what is going to happen if you lose the fight, you're going to go back to the lobby, you're going to ready up. What's going to happen if you win the fight and win the game, you're going to go back to the lobby and ready up. It's really not that big of a deal one way or the other. So just try to force yourself to get in fights if you are someone who panics, and I think you'll start to get over that once you get in. Once you just get more experience fighting. And I think being calm in these situations goes a long way in helping you play to reset the fight properly, you know, heal when possible, get to cover, get to right shoulder peek, and turn the fight that way versus just blindly running away. And then the final thing we're going to talk about is going to be cars. Because, you know, it's chapter 5. I love cars. I think in every video this season I've talked about cars probably, but they're very good, and it's very good for this situation as well because you have mobile cover. If you're next to your car, maybe engaging in a fight with somebody and they snipe you to the body, you can just get in your car. It's harder for them to tag you. They still can, but you can get in your car and drive away, and then potentially, you know, turn your car to make a situation where you have right shoulder peek. And then also in close range fights, if they do just hop on you with the auto shotgun, it's hard to turn shotgun fights this season because the auto shotgun is a weapon where you and the opponent just both kind of trade damage, you know? Whereas like when it's a pump meta, if you hit a fat pump shot, like when we had the Mythic Havoc pump in the game that hit for 220, if you hit a perfect shot for that, you could completely turn that fight, you know? But I think it's much harder to turn fights with the auto shotgun because it doesn't hit as hard, and then also the penalty for your opponents missing any shots isn't as large. So using cars, I think, is going to be one of the few ways that you can actually turn close range fights this season, where I've talked about this a lot, but you can get in and out of the car and basically shoot, get back in the car, get out again, shoot. Like you could just constantly use the car, and the fact that like the way your character gets out of the car is weird to your advantage. And people have told me that this only works against noobs. I'll have a clip on screen now where I fought Camille's, who's one of the like early OG Fortnite pro players. And I, you know, beat him using the car, and I believe he had the mythic auto shotgun in this situation and I did not. So it's like a fight that's kind of in his favor, but using the car, I was able to beat him and not take as much damage in this fight as I would have otherwise. And you can use this tactic in every close range auto shotgun 50-50 fight this season. I've had a lot of fights that aren't going my way, but through driving the car and repositioning using the car, and you basically kind of like using that camera glitch of jumping in and out, you're able to just completely reset the fight. So what I like to do in these is basically get in the car and try to bait the opponent into getting into the car with me, And then once they get in, you can jump out, shoot a shot or two at them when they're in the passenger seat of the car, whether or not they're in the front or the back, doesn't matter. Once you get out, you'll have a decent line of sight on them and you can get damage. And then they'll probably hop out once you start dealing damage to them. And then you can just get back in, and then you basically just rinse and repeat this. And it's just a lot of people panic in these situations because they aren't used to playing these fights. And your character model is like just weird when you're jumping in and out of the car. That isn't the only way you can use it. You know, you can basically drive, jump out of your car, shoot a shot from right shoulder peak on the backside or whatever, and then get back in and just constantly keep doing that. And again, your character model is so hard to hit. So I would highly recommend trying to learn this. It's kind of hard to describe because it's very just like the way you play, I feel like, is based on how your opponent is playing. If they get in, you get out and then shoot them. If they don't get in, you kind of want to drive it and then peek from the right of it. But either way, you're juggling getting in and out of the car and shooting shots every now and then. And it's just much harder for the opponent to get damage on you than when you just stand there and you know, y'all trade damage. It's like one of the few ways you can make auto shotgun fights less random this season if you do have a fight that's more just out in the open with no cover. If you're on the flip side of this, I think you just want to get out of there, just shockwave away, or try to steal the car from them and do it to them theirself. But I feel like the person who has the driver's seat kind of like dictates the pace of these fights. But that is it for this video. There's not that much to talk about with this. Just the rule of repositioning to cover or a position of advantage and trying to turn the fight by peeking from the right while they're pushing you, because while pushing you, people are going to kind of let their guard down. That's going to be the best play to make, and the snipers are probably the best weapon for that this season, but even the AR or sometimes even the shotguns can really help you turn those fights when you're at an HP deficit. The biggest thing is that you just don't want to panic. When you panic and just run and don't defend yourself at all, it's unlikely that fight is going to go any different. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys found this helpful, informative, interesting. As always, if you did, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and I will see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.